I love pajamas. They're the most comfortable clothing one could possibly ever wear. And I wear pajamas a lot. Working in theater, I often don't get home till late, and sometimes I don't get up till after noon. And so it's not unusual for me to be in my pajamas in the afternoon, in the morning, in the evening, pretty much any time. So one day, I go downstairs to get the mail, and not so surprisingly, I am in pajamas. There are two little boys who live downstairs, and the door sneaks open, and one yells, "Marie has Camou Pajamas!" And the door slams shut. Then the other little boy opens up the door and he says, "Cool. Wow." Now, I had never thought of these pajamas as being camo pajamas. I liked them because they were blue, like my eyes, and they reminded me of the ocean. But now that I thought about it, I guess I do have blue camo pajamas. So one day, their mother calls and she says, "Marie, I really hate to bother you, but please, would you mind at all watching the boys? Something has come up." I said, "Sarah, I'll be right down." I put on my camo pajamas and I'm all ready to take care of the boys. Chad and Ty are just so damn cute. I have seen them in their pajamas more than they have seen me. So I know they have a slew of pajamas and or costumes. So I say, "Tell me a story. Tell me a story about one of your favorite pairs of pajamas." Now, I knew this was possibly opening up a Pandora box of pajama messes. So I said, "Go get one pair of pajamas, put them on, and come tell me the story." This was a phenomenal way to get kids ready for bed, and they came out and they told me the story. They had piles and piles and piles of pajamas, and they each picked out a pair of pajamas, and they told me the story about this superhero, that superhero. They showed me their capes that they could wear with various pajamas to make them Halloween costumes, or just let's play in the backyard costumes. So that's how we spent the unexpected evening of me watching the two boys who lived downstairs. And then the younger one says to me, "Oh, Marie, I think it's time for bed. Can you read me a story?" So, having told their stories, they were ready to go to sleep without an argument. We went into the bedroom. I got in the middle, one boy on each side, pulled out a book, read them a book, hugged them good night, and sweet dreams. They went to bed just like that. And Sarah said, "How were the boys?" And I said, "Absolutely wonderful. We had a fantastic time." During the late 1990s, I was on a vacation with my niece Kelly and her sister Julie. Kelly was just sharing all the wonderful things she learned in kindergarten. Aunt Marie, did you know that a nickel is bigger than a dime and worth less? Yes, Kelly, I know that. Isn't that weird, she said. Yeah, it seems a little strange, but it depends on what the coins are made with. And then she proceeded with, did you know 5 pennies equal a nickel? Yes, Kelly, I know that. I'm so glad you're learning these things. And did you know 2 nickels are the same as a dime? I know that. Did you know 5 pennies equal 1 nickel? Yes. This is fantastic. Did you know 2 nickels equal 1 dime? Oh, this is fantastic, Kelly. You're learning so much. And did you know 5 nickels equals 1 quarter? Or 2 dimes and 1 nickel equals a quarter? Yes, Kelly, you are so smart. And then, out of the blue, during this whole did you know lesson, she says, Aunt Marie, did you know that sometimes girls marry girls? Well, as a lesbian woman, I did know this. And although it wasn't legal in most places, I answered her question, yes. Because something told me more was coming. She was trying to figure things out in her kindergarten brain, and Mommy and Daddy loved each other very, very much, and they were a family, and Auntie Shell and Uncle Tommy loved each other very much, and they were a family, and my partner and I, we loved each other very much, and we were a family. So in her kindergarten brain, she was thinking about alternative families. And so then she said, did you know sometimes boys marry boys? And so once again I said, yes, sometimes boys marry boys. And when they do, people kill them. Oh my God, nothing could have prepared me for that comment. I looked at my sister Noreen, giving her first right of response, and she looked at me in shock with a look of, I don't know what to say. Aunt Marie, you get to field this comment. Kelly, I said, and I could tell by her look in her eyes that this greatly disturbed her, as it should. And all I could say was, sometimes people refuse to accept a love that is different than theirs, And on rare occasions, gay men and lesbian women are killed. That's not fair. No, it's not fair. Then my sister piped in, "Where did you learn this, Kelly?" "Stephanie." She said, "Stephanie," as if I learned coins from my teacher. And nobody knew who Stephanie was and how this conversation had come up. But I suspected somehow Kelly might have heard about the brutal beating and slaying of Matthew Shepard in Wyoming. His tragic and horrible death made the news across the country because of its brutality. And it was reported on mainstream television stations and mainstream newspaper articles. During this period of time, there were lots of other abuses and killings of gay and lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. I needed to give Kelly peace of mind that I, her Aunt Marie, was not at risk. She came to church with me one day, and I pointed to the organist and I said, "Do you see the organist?" "Yeah." "Do you see the woman turning the pages for her?" "Yeah." "Guess what?" "What?" "They're married." "Really?" she yelled, for everybody to hear. "They're married?" And I said, "Yes." Now, it would be a few years until the laws changed in the United States and other places. And although they'd been together for 25 years, it would be a few more years until they got legally married. If you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender, know your nieces and nephews might be paying more attention to what's going on, and they may actually be more willing to talk to you than other family members. Kids today are inquisitive. They recognize bullying is bullying. They know when something is unfair, and they know when something is plain wrong. So today, I hope and pray that there are less tragic bullying and deaths of members of our community, but the fact remains. We must be vigilant. We must pass laws, and we must have hope. From the 5-year-old kindergarten Kelly through the 30-year-old Kelly, So much has changed, and may it continue. Let's be decadent, I said with great enthusiasm to young Reed when he was in the 2nd grade. What's that mean? Well, it depends on who says it. He pondered for a while, and then he said with great curiosity, Marie, what does it mean when you say it? I love when children are curious to learn new words. And we had this great word game. There were nickel and dime words. There were state quarter words. There were Kennedy $50 words. And then words like decadent were silver dollar words because the meaning depended on who was saying it and how they were using the word. So I continued with my lesson and said, what do you like with your hot chocolate? Marshmallows or whipped cream? I like marshmallows at home, said Reed. And when we go out to eat, I like whipped cream on my hot chocolate. Well, I turned to Reed with sheer excitement and said, let's be decadent. Let's have Ghirardelli hot chocolate with marshmallows and whipped cream. Really? Really, I answered. And so it was. Reed and I went into the kitchen. We picked 3 mugs and filled them with marshmallows, carefully heated the hot chocolate so it wouldn't boil over, poured it into the mugs, and then topped them off with whipped cream. Such satisfaction. Winter turned into spring, spring turned into summer, and we continued learning new words and practicing old words. Let's be decadent, said Reed. Can we have an ice cream sundae instead of an ice cream cone? He asked. Only if you finish your dinner, his mother teased. And then came autumn. Reed was used to 3 seasons of sleepover parties at my house and at his house, and he said, Marie, are you coming over for a sleepover this weekend? And I said, no, I have to work at the Ordway. And he went, oh, I want you to meet my grandparents. I personally wasn't so sure that I wanted to meet his grandparents or that they wanted to meet me, but he pleaded, and his mother said she'd change it to an earlier meal so that I could make it to the Ordway Theater. And so it was. We had Thanksgiving together. Another game that Reed played was busboy. The meal was coming to an end. I'd go up to each person and say, are you done with your meal? May I take your plate? And boy, his grandparents were so impressed that he was so grown up, and he was clearing the table, and I got up and helped clear the platters. His mom made coffee, hot apple cider, and various other drinks. That Reed came running to my side and he said, Marie, let's be decadent. His grandmother gasped. Her forehead crinkled, her eyes squinted. Then she darted a look at me, which Reed didn't notice, thank God, because he had bolted into the kitchen. I just felt so horrible. There were tears streaming down his face, and I quickly followed him into the kitchen. Why is Grandma so mad at me? Why? I was just trying to show her that I know our new words. Oh, Reed, I tried to explain. Do you remember When we first learned the word, I said it has different meanings on depending who says it. I think she only knows the bad, the bad meaning of the word. I wouldn't be using a bad word. I know that. I just think she was so surprised that at your age you could use that word so well. He just took her by surprise. And I tried to wipe the tears from his face and I said, Reed, your mother knows about our word games. Why don't you give it another shot? Go into the dining room, right up to your mother. Mom, it's Thanksgiving. Let's be decadent. Do you want one piece of pie? Or would you like to try 2 pieces of pie? And his mother said, Reed, let's be decadent. Could I please have a piece of apple pie and a small piece of pumpkin pie? And so it was that Reed went around the table and got all the orders, and I cut the pieces of pie and he delivered them like the waiter. And that Thanksgiving, everyone was decadent, including grandmother. Soon after dessert was finished, I announced I had to go to work at the Ordway, and Reed ran up and gave me a big hug, and his mom gave me a kiss as I was driving to the Ordway Theater. I was thinking about what had happened, and I imagined that the daggers from his grandmother's eyes were not intended for Reed. They were probably intended for me. I had been skeptical of my intuition told me I wanted to wait on any holiday celebrations, and yet I agreed to go to Thanksgiving, and it was good to spend Thanksgiving with Reed and his mom, and I really appreciated that. Somehow I imagined the daggers at the end of the meal were not intended for Reed. They were intended for me. I suspected that the facade of Minnesota nice had quickly dissipated, and Reed's grandmother's true feelings slowly came out. The non-verbalized questions came to consciousness in her mind, I expected. Why? Why does my grandson know that word? Who is that Marie? Why is she at a family function? Dressed all in black for a holiday? She looks like a man. She should be in a skirt or a dress. Something more festive. And then I expected the aha moment had come. I don't approve of her decadent lifestyle. I never shared these thoughts with Reed or his mother. It was simply an intuition that a judgment had been made. It's hard. It's hard when people don't accept you for who you are. But life is good anyway, because there are always other people who love and accept you just as you are. And for those people, we can always be thankful. When it comes to four-footed furry friends, I have always considered myself a dog person. Isn't there some unspoken word that a person is either a dog person or a cat person? I mean, you really can't be both, can you? My mother had a very strict rule when we were growing up. No cats. None whatsoever. My mother, who grew up in New York City, could not stand cats howling, hissing, and fighting in the alley. So that was the rule. No cats whatsoever. Boy, if my mother knew that the cats were mating, I suspect my sisters and I might not have been born. But we were. And we went to friends' houses where they had cats, and their cats didn't hiss and howl and fight like my mother's stories. They purred and purred and purred and purred, and it was just wonderful. But we never got a cat. No, 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 not in the Cooney household. However, one day, my mother came home with a dog. She worked at a restaurant, the Mirador, in Framingham, Massachusetts, and there were a lot of celebrities, and so she often came home with stories, but she came home with a four-footed furry friend that was a black dog. Oh my goodness, my sisters and I were so excited. Well, we named the dog Peppy. Peppy was the name of the chef that my mother worked with, and apparently Pepe was not a good fit with his children. So my mother brought him home for her children. And ever since then, my two sisters and I have been dog people. My first dog as an adult was Tucker. I brought him to the Ordway Center for the Performing Arts during the run of Showboat. And we had a what to name the puppy contest. The musicians, the actors, the stagehands, other staff, everyone wanted to name the puppy. And we had a list of 3 full pages of suggested names. And out of 3 full pages, the puppy came to two, Samuel and Tucker, and hence he became Samuel Tucker, or Tucker for short. Oh, Tucker was an amazing dog. After I sustained a traumatic brain injury, he knew better than any person in my life that something had changed. During various appointments, my neurologist would ask me, how are things going? And has anyone you live with noticed any changes? And I said, my dog puts me to bed. Really? What kind of dog do you have? A border collie. Oh my God, they are so smart. What else does he do? He doesn't let me forget to eat. He'll give me his bowl, but he won't eat because I'm top dog and I have to eat first. Anything else? I drink lots of water. I forget to drink, but every time I have to fill his bowl, I have to get something to drink for myself. Because of him, I have to get exercise every day, even if I sleep 12 hours or more in the evening and take naps in the day. So the neurology department wrote me a letter, and Tucker became my service dog. Tucker stood by my side, and he was the best dog ever. And one day I woke up and he was staring right at me, and he didn't move. He didn't come to my side. My Tucker, my service dog, died watching over me. That's often the hardest period of time for anyone when they lose a pet. And it's often the first time a child ever has to deal with grief, that when they lose a pet. And the little girl who lived in the apartment nearby, Katie, said, Marie, are you gonna get another dog? No, Katie, I can't get a dog right away. I just need to grieve the loss of Tucker. And she would go online and she would look at all these pets. And she'd say, I found another border collie. And I looked at this picture and it was a border collie mix. Whoa, 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 whoa. I was not gonna get a border collie that sounded whoa, 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 whoa. Would it have the smarts of a border collie and the personality of a hunting dog? No, that was not gonna work. Katie, I said, no dog is better than the wrong dog. And so days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and there was no dog after Tucker. Then Carver County Humane Society in Minnesota was having an adoption day at Petco. And I reminded Katie that no dog was better than the wrong dog. And her mother knew that information. And Katie said, yes, I understand. However, when we went to Petco and we looked at a number of dogs, and I just shook my head. And I said, no, not today. Really? Really? She said in total disbelief, even though I had forewarned her that just because we were going window shopping didn't mean we were coming back with a pet. Her mother gave her the look. No dog. No dog is better than the wrong dog. Much to Katie's disappointment, I got in the car, turned on the ignition, and started to leave. When suddenly I saw a couple taking a dog out of their car. I stopped the car, turned it off, and asked, "Can I please walk your dog?" Before they even checked their dog in, they handed him over to me. I had no idea that people were watching. I turned this way. The dog turned this way. I turned that way. The dog turned that way. I stopped. The dog stopped. I gave him a signal to go down, a playful signal to go down on 4 paws. And he went down on 4 paws. I ran with him one way, I ran with him another way. I gave him verbal commands, I gave him nonverbal commands. This was one smart puppy. And so it was decided that I adopted Rico as my service dog, and Katie, who was adopted, asked if she could sign the papers too. And Katie would tell everyone, Rico is Marie's service dog and my dog. We all just live under 2 roofs. And I thought that was pretty funny. Rico was the perfect name. Rico is Spanish and it means rich, decorative, and ornate, which was the perfect description of Rico's coat. His coat was black and brown, tan, caramel, and now that he's older, he has a white beard with white eyelashes and white eyebrows. So like Pepe and the chef from a foreign country, I had a dog, Rico, with a foreign name. And it was just perfect. Many years later, I started dating Nanette. Nanette had 2 4-pawed furry friends. And her 4-pawed furry friends were cats. One cat was named Shiloh, after a Neil Diamond song. Shiloh, I would call your name and you would come. Shiloh got used to being sung to. Shiloh, interestingly enough, also became a model. Shiloh is on a tarot card with cats. Nanette's other cat, Hildy, was named after Hildegard von Bingen, a mystical woman in the early Christian church. A lot of people would say Hildy was a tuxedo cat, but she was named after an abbess, and we considered her as being dressed in full habit. After a while, Nanette and I were trying to decide if we might become sleepover friends. And if we did, how would we introduce the pets? Her house was used to 2 cats and no dog. My house was used to 1 dog and no cats. She owned the condo. The cats were there first. So Rico had to sit in one spot of the house tied to a stairway leading to the front porch and let the cats come to him if and when they wanted to. Not surprisingly, Shiloh was the first curious cat who wanted to figure out who was this multicolored thing that looked like her but was much bigger and smelled different. Eventually, Hildy acquiesced. She didn't like having a dog, but she did like torturing him and giving him a little bit of a swat from the dining room table now and then. Rico had a thick coat, so he barely noticed. Rico was just happy to have a bigger pack. So it was that Nanette and I became a family of 5. 2 people, 2 cats, and a dog. As time went by, we actually got another cat. Much to my surprise, I was learning that you can be a dog person and you can be a cat person. And so it was, we got another black cat. And this time we named her Rosvita. Rosvita was another mystic, another nun, another abbess, another healer in the early church. And she was a playwright. And so it was that we got Rotzi. And Nanette explained to me, Rotzi will have to be your cat. And I'm like, why my cat? Rico's now our dog. He's a pack animal. He thinks more the merrier. A lot of cats are more solitary. A lot of cats are more introverted, like Nanette. And Rotzi and I spent time alone in the spare bedroom on the day bed, and she would sleep on my chest and purr, 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 purr. Oh my goodness. And Nanette said, there is no way that Hildy will let Rotzi get near her lap. And just as Nanette said, Rotzi wasn't allowed anywhere near Nanette. And when I would come home from work, Rotzi had a little bit of a dog personality. She would come running, she would fetch a toy, she would come and play, and then she would sit on my chest and purr and purr and purr and purr so happily. And that is how I, someone who thought you were either a dog person or a cat person, became both. I am now a dog person and a cat person, thanks to the magic of mystical cats. Once upon a time, in a time not so long ago, and in a place not so far away, there lived a queen whose name was Queen Helene. One day, Queen Helene saw a very handsome man in the marketplace, and he was having a wee little dessert while the young boy with him was eating something quite decadent and delicious. Oh, will his mother be upset when that boy comes home without an appetite? Queen Helene teased, but she was wrong. The ladies of the land said, "That's not his son, that's James's nephew." "Oh, James?" the queen asked. "James is the son of Harold of Providence, the diamond cutter. He passes through now and then to sell and buy his wares." "So James is not married?" "Oh no, not even dating. Between his travels and taking care of young William, he doesn't have time for such things." Well, this piqued Queen Helene's curiosity. "Next time you see James in the marketplace, would you be so kind as to ask him to come and visit me? I would love to see the jewels made by his family and the wares he buys and sells." And so it was that Queen Helene and James would meet whenever he passed through her queendom. James would tell Queen Helene about meeting diverse people from all around the world. The queen was a little curious about William, and she asked, "Is it difficult for you to travel with such a young boy without a woman to help you?" "Oh, not at all," said James. "William is quite inquisitive of all the people he meets. He's getting an amazing education, and sometimes he's quite the entertainer. He might take up the trade of working in the theater." The queen was always interested in viewing the jewels made by Harold of Providence and other members of the Cooney family. And she was equally interested in hearing about James's travels and viewing the amazing things he brought back. Queen Helene especially enjoyed the pajamas that James would bring back from all around the world, from people of many cultures, using many different fabrics and a number of different decorative techniques, beads, jewels, silks, satins, embroidery. Oh, the queen was just delighted by the treasures James would find to share with others. One day, Queen Helene asked, "James, are you traveling for the Harvest Festival?" "Well, as a matter of fact, I'm not. The week before, I'm dropping young William off at his father's, for he has reached the age to choose a trade. And just as I suspected, it is within the theater. And so neither you nor I will see as much as him as we are used to. James, would you be so kind as to be my special guest at the Queen's table during the Harvest Festival? James protested, I am but a traveler and a tradesman. It would not be appropriate for me to be a guest at the Queen's table. You must be my special guest, Queen Helene proclaimed. For I wish my royal parents and other relatives to meet you. I am but a humble tradesman. I would gladly accept a place among the common people, for that is who I am. You are no such thing, James. You are the kindest, most knowledgeable, the most worldly person I have ever met. And so it was James, his place at the Queen's table. Word quickly spread that the Queen's royal family would be in attendance, and people from all over within the huge queendom and far beyond came for the festivities of this year's harvest feast. When the feast was over, and before the festivities and merrymaking began, Queen Helene asked for the royal sword. When the royal sword was brought out, there was a hush over the crowds. Even the animals became quiet, and the birds stopped singing, for everyone except James knew that something very important was about to happen. Extended members of the Finnegan families and the McGee families had traveled across the great divide of salted waters, and they knew exactly what was about to happen. Queen Helene politely called James front and center. In all his travels, James had never seen such a thing, and yet he did as she had requested. James blushed at such attention. The royal families found this quite endearing. He was an honest man who showed his feelings quite openly. Queen Helene held the sword high above her head, and then she brought it down upon one shoulder, brought it high above her head, and brought it down upon the other shoulder of James. And she proclaimed, by the powers vested upon me by the unity of the Finnegan families with the McGee families, she held the sword high and brought it down upon each shoulder, proclaiming, by the powers vested upon me, by the unity of the Finnegan families with the McGee families, and by the powers invested in me, by the trust of the people throughout the queendom, I hereby knight you, Sir James of the worldly travelers. Knighted? James was speechless. The crowds were speechless. The royal families nodded with great approval. And then Queen Helene knelt before Sir James and said, Sir James, Knight of the worldly travelers, would you be so kind as to take my hand in marriage and become my beloved spouse? James was speechless. As a common tradesman, he never dreamed that such a union would ever be possible, even though he had secretly fallen in love with Queen Helene during all of their many meetings. There was a pause throughout the crowd. There was a pause among all the animals of the land, the air, the water, and then the royal parents proclaimed, "Hear, hear! Hear, hear! What saith you, Sir James?" And this was followed by the crowds singing in every language, "Hear, hear! Sir James, the knight of worldly travelers, what saith you to such a delightful question?" "I do," said Sir James. And the crowds roared with excitement. There was great laughter. There was tremendous dancing, and the merrymaking went on all night in celebration of the engagement of Queen Helene and Sir James.